Good morning. I am Michelle Carter-Douglass, and I'm going to give people a few moments to come on. Good morning, good morning, good morning. And now we do have a few people in, okay? In this world, there are many people with many stories, talent, and gifts. We are survivors. We are winners. We are sons and daughters of the Most High God. As we once closed the windows and the doors from the hurt and the pain, we have been lifted up to share our testimony, our journeys through open doors. Good morning, everyone. God is good. Today, I am inviting you behind my own closed doors, the misconceptions of the autistic child. Today's segment is not to educate, but just to inform about my personal journey with my 3 special needs children. Oftentimes, we have our children, and at times, people tend to judge the shoes that they have never walked upon. According to Autism Speaks, 1 in 45 children ages 3 to 17 have been diagnosed with ASD, which is autism spectrum disorder. Some resources indicate it is 1 in 68. In my household, 3 out of 4. I take you with the journey of my oldest son, Patrick Douglass. Patrick, when he was 3 years old, was misdiagnosed as mildly MR. During the years in the testing and the counseling, he was diagnosed officially with Asperger's syndrome at the age of 19. Going back to his early elementary school years, my son was unable to speak. In most cases, in some autistic children, they do have difficulty speaking. It was hard going to places in public. People wonder why I am secluded to this day. Let me give you some examples. Those parents that have autistic children or children with special needs that may exhibit behavioral issues know exactly what I'm speaking about. You go to a church and your child does not sit still, and people give you these looks as if something is wrong with you and something is wrong with your child. You go to a store and people see your child, as they say, acting out. What's wrong with him? What's wrong with you? Why don't you discipline them? Well, you cannot treat anger with anger, first and foremost. Going with my youngest son, Brylan Douglass, who is now 17, he will be 18. Brylan also, with his autistic diagnosis, had the diagnosis as ADHD, which is hyperactivity. Brylan was super hyper. Every single time I was having to bring him into the emergency room, I'm like, these people are going to think that I am abusing my son. And the hardest thing with that is that during his hyperactivity, I don't really think he heard and was able to process me calling his name. Well, When Brylan was in elementary school, I had a friend that I grew up with, Lamont Ferguson. And it takes a lot for me to trust people around my children. So at this particular time, I befriended him. He befriended me. I allowed him around my children. And Brylan was in one of his super hyper episodes. And he was like, I was calling him, and Lamont Ferguson hit my son with a cane across his head. So when people hear Brylan speak to this day, he sometimes talks with a slow speech or whatever else. And when I took him to a speech pathologist, I never told her about the backstory, but she said that it seems as if there was a blow to his head. Now, I bring that up not to blame people, whatever. You know, I spoke with the man, and I haven't really spoke to him since. And after that, I really became secluded with allowing different people around my children. The reason I bring this incident up is because you cannot treat people with aggression. Sometimes a child is acting out, not because they want to, but because that is what their diagnosis is driven them to do. So, with that being said, I bring you to the point of discussing this situation. There was a video that I will post again on my page where a young African-American girl by the name of, I believe, Aria, Princess Aria, she begins acting out into the classroom where she's throwing different things all around. What struck me was the comments that people had posted. She needs to be whooped. Timeout, no, I don't think so. What is wrong? Is she got it from the home? In my culture, we talk about discipline, we talk about timeout, we talk about different other things. And I am not perfect. Did I discipline my children, whoop them? Yes, I did. But it was through education and counseling that I was able to see other alternatives. And that's what my mission in life is. For each individual, I want you to know, behind closed doors, God is with you. And in addition, we as a community must band together to help one another, not judge one another. So with that being said, you cannot just automatically see a child acting out and assume that it is because they are deliberately being disobedient or that the parent does not have the ability to redirect their children. I'm going to say this. Think off the plantation. And yes, I just went there. What I mean by think off the plantation, a lot of times people talk about slavery days. In the slavery days, which was hundreds of years ago, people that were assumed not to be in line with what the mission was, the motive was, or to do what they were told were whipped. So we talk about racism, discrimination, and we talk about slavery, but we still keep the mentality. Our children today need so much more in the world than judging. You cannot treat anger with anger. You cannot hurt the hurt. I urge everyone, it is never too late to say I'm sorry, to change, and also to grow. Let's look at some other misconceptions of the autistic child. One misconception that my children were not intelligent. That's incorrect. With my son Patrick, I had to learn different ways of communication. My son was able to, at a young age, be able to communicate with me and with people that he was closest to by signs, by different other demonstration and what he was saying. He may not have been verbally able to articulate what he was saying, but in other ways he was able to articulate what he wanted and what he was trying to convey. Patrick now graduated high school with a 3.33. He was told, well, I was told that my son probably would not be able to read or write. That was incorrect. It is not what they say, it is what God says and what God ordains. Also, my son is a published author. I do not boast nor brag, but this is a testimony behind my closed doors. My son, Brylan, who used to not be able to sit still, who endured so much by his biological father and from the person that I trusted and I thought was a friend. Brylan is now in high school, and yes, at times he does struggle academically, but his journey enabled him to love, forgive, and grow, and work through what needs to be worked through. Brylan is also a published author. My daughter, Arlessa Douglas, was not diagnosed with autistic disorder, but she was at one time diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder. Anyone that knows about oppositional defiant disorder knows that if you tell the person to sit up, stand up, they're going to sit down. Tell them to wash dishes, they're not going to wash the dishes. So it took a lot to redirect my daughter in what needed to be done. And I'm very glad to say that there are counseling agencies that help you with redirection. All you have to do is reach out. With Arlessa today, you would not be able to know about her diagnosis at all. It doesn't take the rod to spare the child. It takes the love. It does not take physical discipline to redirect. It takes the listening ear and the kind speech. If there's anyone that is feeling overwhelmed with raising their children, I urge you to call your local 211, local Child of Department of Human Services. Ask for parenting classes in your area. I reached out, and through reaching out, I was able to redirect my children. I was able to establish a better relationship with my children, and to this day, it is a benefit. I would also like to touch on a couple of other things. As far as, thank you so much, Alona, and to touch on a couple other things, with my journey with raising 3 special needs children, I was able to see different things differently, which is sometimes the resources for people are limited. Being a single mother, I reached out to the mentoring group. I believe it's Boys Club or something. There was a long waiting list, so I never was able to get a mentor for my 2 sons. And being a single woman, I did not have that. God bless you. God bless you too. So what I did was, I took my children to different local churches that had different groups. Also, I utilized their school. So in their school, I was open and honest. I talked to the teachers. And so I told the male teachers, look, I don't have a male role model that's in my kid's life. So is there any way you all can help them out? And believe it or not, my son's male teachers began mentoring to them, you know. So do not think that anybody is going to be against you. By communication, you are able to reach out and ask for that hand of help. I also want to touch on the fact that when you deal with children with special needs, I'm just going to say this. Please don't assume. Don't assume that they are limited in intelligence. Don't assume that they don't have goals and dreams. You see, at a young age, I was supposed to be in special education. My mother did not want that. She felt I could do better because I was able to articulate myself at home, and there was conversations that me and my mom had at a young age, and even my grandmother. You're very smart, you're very intelligent, but it was just a disconnect when it came to putting everything on paper. And then I'm not using it as an excuse, but being bullied in school, I just could not concentrate. Seriously, I could not. I would have upset stomachs. So, when I graduated from high school, I barely graduated. I barely graduated from high school. In my senior year, I went to the Mahoney County Career Center, and also my home school was Struthers. And that senior year was excellent for me, because I was doing word processing. It was something that I believed in and something that I felt I could do, So gracefully, by the grace of God, I did graduate high school, but I did not apply myself, during the whole duration of the 4 years of the high school. When I graduated, I really wanted to become a writer. And so I did a paper and I sent it to the Spelman College. I got accepted, but I decided I don't regret. I decided that, I wanted to be with my, kid's father. So, but I don't regret that. But my point of bringing that up is I did not academically have the grades, but I had the seed. You understand what I'm saying? So during the years that had passed, even though I did not go to Spelman College, in 2007 I ended up going to Youngstown State University. And when I tested in college classes for their English. So I took social work because that's what I want to do. And now I am writing. Now in college, and I'm not ashamed of it, I receive services from special services. So what I'm saying is the stigma that people are in special education or receiving services, tutoring programs to help them along does not mean that they are unintelligent. Case in point. You understand what I'm saying? So do not be afraid. Don't let anybody define you. A person's interpretation of you does not define you. Your job, your occupation does not define you. The complexion of your skin does not define you. How many packs of weave you have in your hair does not define you. God and the Christ in us defines us. Also, I want to say, to my children, I am so, so proud of you. And it's hard because I'm just going to talk about this for a moment. I had people comment about my kids and the age that they should have been driving and whether or not they live at home or whatever have you. God forgive me. But I'm going to say this, and I'm not putting my children above anybody. But unless you can walk in our shoes, walk in their shoes, don't profess to say anything. My children, okay, how am I going to put this without offending anyone? My kids are doing good. There are times that they don't function on the age that they are on. And I took the personal decision to talk with professionals. And when their cognitive ability to get behind the wheel and to be able to drive to and fro safely to the best of their ability, then that's when it's going to happen. Okay? And see, that's the problem with, I think, some people. Some people want to walk in the doctor's shoes, but they don't have the PhD. You know, you don't have the right to give suggestions if you don't know the backstory, if you don't know the diagnoses, you don't know anything. All you know is your assumption, and we know where that leads. So, you know, when it comes to when a person's child is driving, when a person's child leaves home, leave that to God Almighty, the parent, and also the professionals. Because you don't know who a person is talking to. You don't know a person's journey. I'm giving each journey step by step, you know. And the bottom line is, there's so many judgmental people in this world. And if we take that same negative energy and channel that to a positive direction, we will become that village. People often talk about what is weighing society down. Misconceptions, assumptions, biases, ignorances, injustices, hate is weighing the society down. We look at today and we see people that are homeless. And we assume that they are homeless because there's no other alternative. We don't know of the people who are homeless by choice that do in fact have money. They just have very strong beliefs in why they choose not to purchase a house or anything else like that. We see a person and they're not very talkative in public. And we assume that they are shy, unintelligent, maybe a little bit, angry or whatever have you. But that's not the point. You know, that could be an active listener. So the misconceptions of an autistic child, I say this: do not assume, do not judge, but love and offer that hand. If we offer a hand and help rather than judge another person, we can build up our communities, city by city, state by state, country by country. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and God bless.